Hey, Carl, now that Pulsar Security is going to be sponsoring the podcast directly, you want to hear the ad copy that we came up with?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, get ready for this. In a world full of security challenges.
No. We can't say in a world.
Come on, that sounds perfect.
You think we should?
It's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie
You
cliche.
think we should leave it open for services on Mars? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
you can't.
Okay.
All right, just go ahead and read the rest of it.
Can I say in a world or no?
Go for it. I don't care.
In a world full of security challenges, trust is everything.
Well, that's true.
At Pulsar Security, we are enabling organizations to thrive safely in an ever-changing digital world.
Yeah.
Our experts conduct cutting-edge cybersecurity services, ensuring your business stays one step ahead of threats.
All good.
Experience peace of mind as we deliver robust solutions tailored to your needs. Your security is our priority. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Choose Pulsar Security for a safer tomorrow. Visit us at pulsarsecurity.com. Empower your digital journey with confidence. Security starts here.
Okay. I like everything but
Okay.
in a world.
It worked for Batman.
I do like to
This
dress
is
dark and in
serious.
hoodies.
Now, this is serious stuff here, man. You're talking about keeping companies safe.
Yeah, we are talking about that.
Like
don't wanna-
cyber superheroes. Come on, Carl.
Conjure up images of the predator, you know?
Well, we should have done this from the start. So now we are officially sponsoring Security This Week by Pulsar Security.
Well, good luck with your ad.
Thanks.
Hey, this week I have a tip for young musicians.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah. If you suck at playing a brass instrument, then that's probably why.
What's probably why? Oh, I see what you did there.
I think you're supposed to blow.
Yeah. Hey guys, what's new?
How you doing?
I'm okay.
How much, man? How much?
I was, thumbing through the stories, and there's some interesting stuff here. We need to say that the clickbait story about the USDA approval, that's a joke. Okay, just stay tuned for the.
Is it? Is it?
Stay tuned for the real story. All right, let's start with Aruba. Nice place, but
Aruba
networking fixes 4 critical RCE, that's remote code execution.
This
flaws
feels like
in Aruba
a
OS.
security Mad Lib.
Mm.
You know, the 4 critical RC flaws were found in insert OS name.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, could be anything.
Yeah, so Aruba networking devices, they're gateways, mobile controllers, wireless units. Think just networking hardware. And I know a lot of times
Owned by HP.
Yeah, and a lot of times we try and bring sort of more security knowledge to the home users and a little bit of advice to enterprise users, right? Go patch, whatever it is. And Aruba kind of plays in between, right? Home users typically will use things like Linksys devices, which are like wireless routers and firewalls and switches and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the stuff you get at Best Buy.
Yeah, exactly. But a step above that would be things like Firewallas, Ubiquities, and Arubas. So they're kind of this in between where you can have massive stadiums and massive corporations managed by Aruba, but there are still devices that are appropriate for the home. So this is a warning to anybody using Aruba devices. It's interesting. And in Aruba, we just recently actually did an Aruba Ubiquity bake-off. And we decided...
Bake-off? What are you talking about? You made brownies?
Trying to figure out which one is most appropriate for what we're doing.
We did. We ate brownies while deciding which one we liked better.
Oh, okay.
And it was Ubiquity.
I never heard that term, bake-off. Maybe...
Really?
That's an IT thing, and I'm a software guy. I don't know.
Wow.
So when you were evaluating a package, a network package, or an intrusion detection endpoint security package,
so you get 3 or 4 different ones, and then you
do a bake-off. You try to figure out like which one's best.
Okay.
We try to do this at least once a year for the major things, so we can tell clients what we think.
Yeah.
And right now, Ubiquity's kind of our favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy to install, easy to upgrade, easy to get up and running, and pretty secure.
So they fixed these remote code execution flaws, so patch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and honestly, they're still a fantastic device. Just if you have Aruba OS, you're running any of these particular controllers, yeah, go out and patch.
Yeah. Okay. This next one is a little bit cuckoo.
On the nose.
So new cuckoo persistent Mac OS spyware is targeting Intel and ARM Macs. Intel and ARM Macs. Are there other chips that Macs use?
I remember there used to be RISC, but I don't think anybody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Which is why it's probably not targeted.
Yeah. Too risky.
Probably why, because nobody's targeting in the 90s.
Okay,
no, so this
RISC. I gotta explain that joke. RISC is reduced instruction set.
Yeah. Chip controller,
kernel,
yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. Yeah,
I think it's a C. RISC.
Yep.
Anyway, so Mac is got spyware.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny because usually there was a period of time when people would go, well, you Windows people, if you don't want viruses, buy a Mac.
That's right.
Right.
Times have changed.
So now it's,
and
hey, you people, if you want viruses, buy a Mac.
Now everybody's saying if you don't want viruses, use Linux.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny
wrong.
too because Mac
they'd be
is
totally wrong.
the underpinnings of Macintosh is Linux. So a lot of people now say, oh, the only reason Macintosh is less secure is because it's now Linux, but whatever. So this is just if you're running Mac, don't fall under the auspices of, hey, I'm running a Mac, I'm just secure innately. There still are targeted viruses for Mac OS. This is a particularly good one. I love how it's called the Cuckoo. Because it stays persistent and resonant in the back end.
Nice.
So you can continually access the device and that sort of stuff.
So that's awesome,
have you guys,
Dwayne?
Oh, it is awesome. Have you guys read the book by Cliff Stoll?
Yeah, the Cuckoo's Nest.
Egg.
The Cuckoo's Egg, yes.
Awesome book.
And I saw the documentary he did. It was
get out!
A PBS documentary. It was years ago. Yeah.
See,
I haven't seen something.
Wait, was that the one where he?
And the problem with those PBS documentaries, you can never find them. You just kind of happen on them in real time.
right. And you got to sit there and watch it, or it's gone forever.
That's right.
It just didn't exist.
It's like a limited time only.
All right, so The Cuckoo's Egg was a book, and then I think this is a 1990 movie, The KGB, The Computer in Me, directed by Robin Bates with Clifford Stoll. I'm looking at this on IMDb, and it's about 1986. Astronomer turned computer scientist Cliff Stoll had just started work on a computer system at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory when you notice a 75-cent discrepancy between some charges, and hilarity ensued.
Yeah.
I'll put that link in there.
And that book actually became required reading at the FBI afterwards. And you'll understand why if you ever do read that book, because the FBI constantly told them during the tracking down of this hacker, we don't care. Please stop telling us.
Yeah, right.
And then...
every scene ended with him getting on his bicycle and drinking a chocolate milk.
Yes, it did. It did in the book too. But no, needless to say, just if you do have a Macintosh, be careful. The article we're going to link to does talk about different domains that this loader is getting dropped from.
Okay.
So if you see your computer through firewall logs or whatever trying to reach out to these, by all means, you want to block them.
Okay.
And you should be running an antivirus of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to really lock down secure operating system, use Windows.
Yeah, there you go. Woo.
On a Tuesday, when it's patched.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, right after it patches. During the time it's down, it's super secure.
Okay, so let's talk about this story from the Register. CISA says no more to decades-old directory traversal bugs.
And now they're done. Now it's over. We don't have to worry about them anymore.
Yep. So they said no more, and there you go.
This is a pretty please to the industry to say, please just stop doing this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because one of the quotes in the article is like, researchers described as embarrassingly easy to exploit.
Yeah.
So this is now okay, enough of this. We've seen enough of these. We need to just stop it.
Right.
We need to the problem is most developers don't actually understand a lot of the hacks that they're coding into their code.
Right.
They just don't understand buffer overflows. They don't understand a lot of the features. because they're so busy with trying to meet other deadlines. Security is not considered a feature. It's considered a tax by most organizations.
Yeah. And certainly to developers traditionally hate. We're
going to do a callback on this.
Developing with security. Okay.
We'll do a callback on this with the clickbait, the last story, because I think that there's a shoe dropping that will make this less of an optional thing in the future.
So if you're a software developer, CISA isn't calling on you. They're calling on the Microsofts and the
Apaches and the whoever else. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the people that make server software.
Well, that could be you if you're a developer and your code ends up somewhere in a supply chain.
Sure.
Only if you're writing your own operating system in web server, right? I mean, it's really the web server that has the problem.
Well, it depends.
Or the server host.
Let's say you write, but let's say you write an API, right? I have a web API that anybody can call, and it gets memes. And you can give it the name of a meme, and it pulls a meme up and hands it back to you. And that's pretty awesome, right? I got this massive database of memes. You call the API, you pay me 10 cents a year, and you get an API key, and you can call it. Fantastic. Yep. So now what happens if I call your API that you wrote and I say, give me ... and then, some config file, right? You as the developer handled that request for that file, right? So you then go, okay, let me grab that file, and you're going to go out and grab that file. So it's not just in the API and server code.
Yes, but the host that, the system that API is hosted on should see that and say, no, you can't do that. Or the guy who's, accessing the directories from the web API, that software should not be able to go up the tree.
But it might have to. That might be where it gets its data from legitimately. What you'd need is some kind of...
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, but...
Well, I agree with that.
Every time you say it shouldn't, there'll be somebody who comes up with, well, yeah, but that's how our software works.
Well, then that software needs to be rewritten because...
Exactly. Yes, we agree.
Yes, but
But they're not the operating system people.
But it should be at the operating system level. A web server, a web API shouldn't allow you to traverse beyond your root domain, your root folder.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you want it somewhere else, you have to make another API call.
But wait, take like a C# application, when ASP.NET application hosted on IIS. IIS innately will not allow you to do a directory traversal. You can't just go to a website and go ... give me a config file.
Right.
It just won't happen.
Yeah.
But I can write system.io code that will pull from anywhere on the hard drive.
Yeah.
Right. And it will feed it back up. Right. So
maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. There are ways. And the reason I say this is a lot of times when we find directory traversals, it's not because we saw a problem with Apache or we saw a problem with, Flask or something along those lines. A lot of times it's the developer circumvented that security and didn't do like a secure file path. Right. In Flask to make sure that they can, I'm only saving to the root and higher. They just go grab the file from the users.
What I'm saying is that the C# code inside that API should not be able to go anywhere on the hard drive.
So let's say you're running a YouTube-like service and you have hundreds of terabytes worth of storage that you have to access for video files. That's not going to all live underneath your application directory. So there's lots of legitimate reasons why you'd have to make a call out to a place, not any place, but a place.
Right. But that place shouldn't include, .. //
Okay. But now you're playing whack-a-mole because the list of places it shouldn't include is very big. We need developers to only allow the code to work at the place that it works.
But what about a deliberate whitelist? What if the server software said, nope, that's not in your deliberate whitelist? And therefore we can't let you access it.
So, Dwayne, how would you attack the whitelist?
So I'll tell you, how would we attack a whitelist? There's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Right.
One is you go, okay, well, what's our allowed path? Our allowed path is you can only...
sometimes I forget who I'm talking to, Patrick.
Let's say you can only go to...
I even suggested that tweet.
Let's say we check the first part of the path, and you can only go to /images. That's it.
Yeah.
Great. That's fixed, right?
But then I will feed you, right? Then I will feed you /images /... and it will pass the whitelist. And then you say, okay, no. I'm going to check the whole path, right? And it's one of the ways that we bypass allowed extensions. Is a lot of people, the way they split the file name and look for the extension, they look for the first thing past the dot.
This is hacker advice, by the way.
It's criminal career advice.
If I do like pictures.jpeg.asp, right? Now it's like, oh, it's a JPEG file, right? So there's all sorts of ways that we bypass whitelists, allow lists, whatever you call them. Yeah.
So my experience is, if you want to stop Dwayne, you have to have everyone involved, not just the operating system.
Yeah.
And you have to shoot them in the face. No.
Wow.
I haven't done it yet.
I didn't realize this episode was rated R.
I'm not the governor of South Dakota. I'm not going to shoot my friend.
Oh, come on, really?
So
I'm not Dick Cheney in a duck blind.
Jeez.
You heard that story, right? The governor of South Dakota thought she could make herself more relatable by talking about executing a puppy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, she didn't talk about it. She did it.
I know.
Yeah, it was in her book.
She actually bragged about it.
And bragged about it. Yeah.
So,
I hate dogs anyway.
You need to look for the thing. You need to be specific in exactly what is allowed instead of trying to, proactively prevent what shouldn't be allowed. If you're only supposed to write to this directory, it should do a test to say, is the directory path, the full directory path, this path? If it's not, then not only throw away that request, but cut off their connection and add them to the blacklist so they can't connect again. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you say, oh, it's kind of like the SQL injection thing where, well, we're not going to allow you to post back the word delete or the single quotes. So we're going to check for single quotes, remove them. Actually, we check for the word delete, then single quotes. If I put the word delete, the single quote in the middle of the word delete, you won't find the word delete. When you remove the single quote.
The real problem is you're not using a parameterized query.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we need to
and you're allowing somebody to enter SQL queries through the web.
Right. So what Dwayne's talking about when he said, well, they didn't do this, that's what they should be doing. But it's not just the operating, the thing I took umbrage at is it's not just the operating system people who need to embrace this. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the burden of security is on developers in general. They need to learn a lot more.
But you could lock it down for developers unless
you could make it easier.
They specifically allow with configuration, whether it's in a database or in the cloud or whatever, some configuration that they explicitly have to say, my application needs access to this folder and nothing above it.
True. Like parameterized queries, we could make it easier for developers, which is what you're advocating for, but we can't make the problem go away for developers because.
Well, if they just create a new web app and, however they do it and that feature is on by default.
But hold on. Let's say it's a C# application.
Yeah.
It needs access to the web.config. Which might be outside of that directory. And you're not calling web.config, but you might be just calling, hey, give me the configuration settings for this, the database connection or something along those lines.
First of all, web.config is a very 90s thing.
You know what I mean?
We're talking about application.json or appsettings.json, which is usually in the root folder of the web app. Yes.
Right. So if you call that, like your app's still touching something outside of the designated area.
Yes, but you, the developer, aren't touching it directly. You're asking the web server to touch it and bring it back to you.
It's a hard problem.
Well, but if I can get the web server to touch something and bring it back to me, I can get it to touch things.
Patrick, you of all people should be on my side with your tomahawk. Lock it down.
No, I agree.
Burn the house down.
What I don't agree with is that this is a problem for a subset of developers. This is a problem for developers. This is a problem for software companies.
Well, right now it is, but I think the Microsofts and the Apaches and whatever could make it more difficult and make it more intentional.
I predict
for
that
developers
you're right.
to be able to go outside.
And in the same way they solve SQL injection, they will solve this.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, and all right.
Which means they won't solve it.
Yeah.
Developers will still screw it up.
All right. We've wasted our listeners' time enough on this.
People's Front of Judea. Judean People's Front.
Okay, so anyway, that was just a call for calm and unity from CISA to please stop with these bugs. I guess we have one more, and then we'll take a break. So over 50,000 tiny proxy servers vulnerable to critical remote code execution flaw. Who wants to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'll take it. So tiny proxy, for those of you who don't use a proxy on a day-to-day basis to route your internet traffic. Let's say, kids, you're at school and they have a filter on websites you can visit. Mm-hmm. You could set up a proxy.
You mean a whitelist?
You could set up a proxy at your house and then route through your house to any website you want. Not that I'm saying you do that, but anyways, the problem with proxies, they see all of your traffic, and there are valid reasons to use this, not just bypass content filters.
Right.
But they're the tiny proxy Tiny Proxy is the name of the product. Pretty commonly used. Lots of them out there used for different things. Proxies are good in two directions. You can proxy out to the internet your requests, or you can proxy requests into a service of some sort, web service, whatever it may be, what they call a reverse proxy. Yeah. So there's different ways to use these proxies. Just be careful. This particular one has a use after free vulnerability. Use after frees are weird. Actually, they're really kind of cool. What you do is typically it's a heap issue. So we've talked about the stack versus the heap.
Yep.
It's typically a heap issue where you allocate memory. So let's say I want to keep, I don't know, an array of numbers, and we allocate memory and we put it on the heap. And then we say we don't need that array anymore, so it gets freed. And then we say, no, we need half that array. So then we reallocate more storage and so on and so forth. What you do is groom that heap in a way where you can then have a pointer to a location that will execute code for you. And you free up the memory, but then use it. So you have this dangling pointer still pointing at memory that should be freed.
But there's something there.
So use after free is where you can exploit the system into calling memory that shouldn't have been there, right? There wasn't a secure overwrite of the memory because computers would slow down quite a bit if they had to do that.
Sure.
And then you can get, in this particular case, this type of an exploit, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a crash. It's not going to be a remote code execution. It's going to be the service goes offline.
Okay.
But that 10th time, you groom that heap properly, you'll get a remote code execution. So
now, has this been fixed yet?
Yep. This one, if I remember correctly, update your instance of Tiny Proxy to at least version 1.11.2. So if you're running 1.11.1 or lower, you want to update.
But is Showdown showing that 50,000 of them are still unpatched?
Are still available online and of the right version to be taken over.
Or the wrong version.
Go ahead, Dwayne. Why don't you publish a list of all the ones that are still vulnerable for our
I'll
listeners.
do better than that. I'll give you access to those servers.
There's 10.10.5.
1, 2,
Name
3,
and shame them.
4, 5.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these very important messages, so stay tuned. And we're back. You're listening to Security This Week. And a reminder, if you do not like ads and you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of our show every week, become a patron. Go to patreon.securitysthisweek.com. I think it's only $5 is all you need in order to get access to that feed. Okay, Microsoft is in the news. They plan to lock down Windows DNS, domain name system, like never before. Here's how.
So DNS is a place that a lot of people don't think about as an attack vector, but it is. DNS poisoning, and if I can redirect you to a site that you think is Google but it's not, I can do all sorts of nasty things.
Right.
So the zero trust movement is something that a lot of governments and a lot of very security conscious organizations are trying to embrace.
Yep.
And right now DNS is full of trust. I trust this server to talk to that server, and so they're trying to lock that down. Now, will they do this on by default? Perhaps not. But the idea is to get the servers I don't knowingly trust out of the mix and get cryptography as part of the communications infrastructure for the DNS traffic.
Yeah, and honestly, it's amazing when you start looking at networks. Like, listen, there's a lot of protocols and whatnot on networks that have existed a very long time and are highly exploitable, right? And when we started looking at even in a Windows network, how Windows computers authenticate to each other and, how they share files and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of exploits in there, and Microsoft is continually trying to upgrade, how authentication works and moving away from NT authentication over to Kerberos and so on and so forth, right? DNS is one of the things that I don't think has been fundamentally changed since Bind in the 70s. I don't know. It's been a really long time since DNS has ever had a rework. There are plenty of companies out there who attempt to apply security to DNS. So there are secure DNS companies, right? Where they will watch all of your DNS traffic and they will, make sure that you're not, there aren't hackers exfilling and infilling data through DNS and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So I'm super interested in the fact, I'm glad Microsoft's taking this stance for zero trust in DNS because I think it is one of the biggest places. We were just talking to a customer of ours recently, and they said, "Hey, we want some advice. Like, dude, what do we do about DNS?" And we were like, pray. Like, there are some companies you can go out there and buy their software, but for the most part, DNS is the Wild West. So I'm glad Microsoft's doing this.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Problem is, a lot of people have zero trust for Microsoft.
Yeah.
Hopefully this becomes standards-based, and we see Mac and others doing the same thing.
Yeah, I expect that's what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
DNS isn't kind of like hanging an API controller out there where you have to do all of your own sort of caching and everything. Like DNS has a cache built in, a time to live. So is there really any such thing as a denial of service attack on DNS?
So yes and no. DNS actually does a really good job of mitigating that using DNS cache servers.
Yeah.
So you're not usually querying like the root servers all the time.
Right.
They assumed that DNS was going to receive billions of requests. So the way it was originally architected, it's actually pretty good. The only way, there are some interesting hacks into DNS where race case conditions can be
exploited
for lack. Yeah, not exploited, but like I can force a race case condition in a DNS server in a way that I can return a particular address back. So there are certain exploits.
Now I know. Wait. I know what a race condition is in threading, where you
think the same thing, but in DNS.
Well, let me explain that. You basically have two threads accessing the same code at the same time.
Same resource.
And in between the time that one updates a variable, the other updates a variable, and they both think they have updated the variable, for example.
Correct.
It's called a race condition. So what's a race case condition in DNS?
It's a particular case where you make a request and the malicious DNS server responds authoritatively before an authoritative DNS server. And if you catch it where there's no closer cache, you have this race condition where the actual authoritative server may not get to you before the malicious one does. And then at this point, you does it work all the time? No, it doesn't. But unfortunately, it's the way the protocol works.
You run with the bad answer.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So just those types of things have existed in DNS for decades. It's great that somebody's at least looking at that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's move now to Finland. Finland warns of Android malware attacks breaching bank accounts.
So the reason I wanted to bring this one up is because this is an example of something that a lot of people know about that they don't really get to. I get a lot of people who say, I got this text message, but there was no link. There was no QR code. They just wanted me to call them. So what's the harm there? There's no, so what happens is in this case, people got an SMS that said, hey, contact us. There's some problems with your account. And they got talked into downloading an app, which sounds like it's like, well, download our official, financial app here. And it might look like the bank's official app. It would be like somebody calling, asking you to call them and they say, hey, I'm from Bank America. I'm not asking you to do anything. Just go and look for our official app. It's Bank America.
Right.
Yeah.
And you, okay, sure. I believe you. And they go and they download an app that looks official, but it's not.
Yeah.
And that app is how they got the exploits. It's something that is happening far more often because people have been trained not to click on links, not to trust things. but a phone number from your bank? Yeah, of course. I'm going to call
Yep.
it. And the problem is also sometimes your banks will say, hey, call us. What they should say is call us on the number on the back of your credit card or the phone number on your statement.
Yep, that's right.
So that's the reason I want to bring this one up.
You actually had that experience with American Express once, didn't you?
Mhm.
Yep.
You mentioned it on the show.
I gave them a very hard time because I called the number on the back of my card instead, asked for the security department.
Well, so you got a text that said, call this number. There's a problem with your account?
I got a voicemail
Okay.
that said, hey, there's some suspicious activity on your Amex. Please call this phone number. I looked at the back of my card. That number was not on the back of my card. So I called the number on the back of my card and I said, can I talk to the security department?
Yeah.
Talk to the security department. I said, I got this message. They asked me to call this other number. And they said, oh, yeah, that was us. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you?
What are you doing? Yeah,
I told them that. I said,
training people to.
Yeah, you should tell me, your message should be changed to call the number on the back of your card. And well, this is more direct number. Okay, but you're teaching me exactly the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Now, if American Express had just called Pulsar Security,
I know, right?
none of this would ever have
true.
happened.
That's true.
You know?
I don't know if they even learned the lesson, but
we don't know.
we want to surface this to people is there's no reason to call somebody by some random number that someone just dropped in your lap. If you really think it's a problem, either go to the website, go to your statements, and call a number there.
You have plenty of ways to get in touch with these companies.
One last point.
Already.
One last point. This is another warning. I know of cases where people were working with things like QuickBooks. And QuickBooks is like Facebook. They're not as bad as Facebook, but they're like Facebook, which is they're a company that prides themselves, maybe they don't advertise this, on not letting you talk to anybody easily. Why? Because every time you do a support call, it costs like $75. It's not in their business. Facebook is the master. You can't talk to somebody at Facebook. There's no humans at Facebook, as far as I can tell. I've tried helping people with Facebook stuff.
It's just all llama
It's
AI
like that
at this
very
point.
first episode of The Outer Limits where there was a lady who got talked into buying a robot to come home and clean up everything, and it turned out to be like a morality police, and was wagging its finger at everybody in the house because of their bad habits and everything. And then it turns out that the place where it came from doesn't exist. There's no door. There's no the company's not there.
So for organizations like that, you might resort to, I'm just going to Google customer support, Facebook or QuickBooks. And a lot of times, not a low number of times, a lot of times there will be bad actors with data centers in Pakistan or India or someplace like that will put a number there in the search results. So if they come up, you'll call them and they'll try to take control of your system as part of their support. And it is a very bad scenario. So you have to really be careful.
Well, my advice is if you're having problems with a company, they have an online presence, but they're not returning your calls, your email or whatever, get on your social media and just complain. Yep. That is
and usually that's how they'll get to you.
Well, that's how the bad actors will get to. That's how anybody will get to you. But if a company is going to help you, that's
what I'm saying. Is that's how to get the company's attention.
Nothing hurts more than public shame and humiliation.
Well, that's what I'm going to start doing now. Is when I need to break into a company, I'm going to start watching social media for their employees and see what they complain about. Spin up the company that looks like the company they're complaining about, and then answer them on X. Get them to install an app.
Twain ruins everything.
I know, right? Can't take you anywhere.
Exactly. This is why we can have nice things.
Okay, the penultimate story.
The penultimate. NSA warns of North Korean hackers exploiting weak DMARC email policies. DMARC. Let's start with what that is, Twain.
Okay. So let me take this if you don't mind.
Patrick.
So DMARC is the domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance policies. So basically, it's DNS stuff that allows one email server to verify that another email server actually sent a message. So there's three technologies. There's SPF, which is not about sun protection, DKIM, and DMARC. DMARC being the most, mature, and it leverages the other two. So for our domain, for example, we would set up DNS entries that would point to the servers that are authoritative for our domain.
Mm-hmm.
And when Dwayne tries to send an email as me to Carl, those settings would allow Carl's email server to automatically check back with us to see if that email was actually sent by our server.
Right.
If it wasn't, it's a spoof.
Yeah.
And you should just throw it away. Or we can quarantine it, or we can just reject it. And those are the levels. There's no enforcement, which is the most common.
Yeah.
There's quarantine, which needs to be managed. And there's reject, which people worry about false positives.
Yeah.
What this is saying is that organizations are either not setting up DMARC at all, or they're setting it up and they're not actually enforcing anything, so they might as well not set it up at all.
Right.
And the North Koreans are using that to spoof. Basically, they're seeing, oh, you've got DMARC set up badly, or you don't have it set up at all. So that means I can pretend to be a user from your domain, and there's no way for the recipient to see the difference.
Yeah. Not
Bad,
good.
bad.
That's so bad. All right. So, basically, if you are running your own mail server, right?
Yep.
You need to turn
this
DMARC on. Is that the...
Actually, if you have email, period, because even if it's hosted with somebody like Microsoft, you still have control of the DNS and you need to have DMARC set up. What I'd recommend is you set it up with none at first, just to make sure you haven't screwed up your email.
Mm-hmm.
Then set it up with quarantine and make it somebody's job to check the quarantine on a daily basis. And then if you find that you're not quarantining anything of value, if you want to just go to reject and have somebody review the reports.
So what if you have a Gmail account? You still have to turn it on?
If you have a domain that is that you front end, because you can have enterprise Gmail.
Well, I do. I have AppVNext and Franklin's Net, and
then you can set up
my domain. My email domains are at Gmail.
Yes, but they're not
gmail.com.
Your email address is not carlfranklin@gmail.com.
Yeah.
So therefore there's a DNS entry, and you can set this up.
Yeah, and I believe that we went through this before, and I did set that up for all my domains. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Gmail won't let you send an email, as they probably have DMARC set up, but there's not a big barrier to entry to send a Gmail account.
Yeah,
I know, right?
However, I might be able to send an email as your Gmail account if they don't have DMARC set up.
Yeah. Okay.
No, and I think they do.
I'm sure they do.
They're actually pretty good.
So this is a technology that really should be, and I'm going to take another minute to talk about it real quick, is about 5 or more years ago, the U.S. government said all government contractors, if you're doing business with the government, have to have this set up by this date. And when the date rolled around, 30% had set it up.
Wow.
And so the adoption rate for this is abysmal. And I think they just threw up their hands and said, we should.
Oh, well, we tried.
We tried.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're starting to see, as we're going to see in the next story as well, the government's trying to figure out how to put some teeth on this kind of thing.
And I guess it's time for that story. The U.S. government is asking big tech to promise better cybersecurity. And the line below that, this is from Wired Magazine. The Biden administration is asking tech companies to sign a pledge obtained by Wired to improve their digital security, including reduced default password use and improved vulnerability disclosures.
So this is weak sauce because they're asking them pretty please. However, I'm going to say this. I believe that this is the opening salvo in something that's going to evolve over the next few years. And what's going to evolve into, I think, is, and that's where the USDA joke is, we're going to get to a point where software and its security is going to be judged whether it's consumable or not, just like food.
Right.
And if your software gets put on the list, then if you're in a government agency or state agency, people are going to have to shut it off and you're going to have to refund their money.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get to that kind of point where,
TikTok?
your software has a default password that's well known on the internet. You're going to have to refund everybody who you've sold this to in the last 5 years.
Sure.
You know what just occurred to me? That you remember the book The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, which exposed the meat packing industry and how dirty it was and everything, and that led to the USDA.
Right.
We are the muckrakers of the 2024.
Break that muck.
You make my job sound so glorious.
Yeah. Just by listening to Security This Week, man, we're blowing the doors off this story.
Snouts and giblets.
Oh.
So I don't have any evidence that this is the case, but I think the tolerance for BS in this regard is starting to overboil. There's so many of the attacks that we're seeing are because of supply chain.
Yeah.
And so I could see us getting to the point where it's like, oh, you made a software that's insecure. It is no longer allowed, and you need to refund all your customers that are under these compliance guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
That will get their attention, and it will make them get their developers to do the right thing.
Well, and honestly, take a look at that with the food packing industry, right? The USDA now has regulations around it, and there's cleaner plants and less, E. coli and food issues and that sort of stuff. So, maybe if it does become more of a regulated industry, right? You'll start to see, hey, I know that this software package was stamped by the U.S. Cyber Department.
Right, because it's kind of the Wild West now. It's not like you can just go out and put up a meat packing plant, but you can go out and put up a website without any kind of, interference or license or anything else.
I think it can be done in a way that isn't too disruptive, because you've got companies like the Tiny Proxy stuff where they've got a patch. Mm-hmm. So you've got a way to fix that immediately. I don't think there's a need for a recall of software that's patchable. Mm-hmm. But if a company does something like, oh, that's not a problem, or, we really can't fix that. That's going to require a new version. Yeah. I could see us saying, oh, okay, in that case, the recall is going to come out and you're going to refund everybody's money. Right. And also you're going to pay for the cost of them rolling it out and putting it back again, that kind of thing.
And or damages if they leave it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they got E. coli from your...
and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that just fascinates me about
E. coli.
I know, right? That fascinates me about this industry. You can write a piece of software that's system critical that you've never looked at from a security standpoint, and if any of your customers get breached, you can go, "Oh no, it was in your environment. That sucks." Right? Okay. It's like a builder selling you a house that may or may not stay standing. Mm-hmm.
So can you roll out that story about when you I don't think I was in that meeting, the board meeting.
Oh yeah,
where you said something and everybody walked out.
Yeah, we were in a senior board meeting, large company. I won't give the name.
This was more than a decade ago.
It's more than a decade ago, and we were talking about like infrastructure and that sort of stuff, and everybody's nodding heads and smiling, and we started talking about cybersecurity, and half the senior executives stood up and left the room. And I was like, dude,
Was it because you told them about an exploit they had in their software that they had to...
No, we were just literally talking about how we could protect them from a cyber attack. And they left, and one of the guys who stayed, I was like, dude, was it something I said? He was like, oh yeah, the lawyers have advised them that if they don't know about a cybersecurity potential fix, then they're not responsible. So they should all leave.
Wow.
And those days are over.
So those days are long over.
It's the ostrich policy.
Yeah. But that's where we were, and now it's coming around. I'm sure that Upton Sinclair, when he was writing his book, The Jungle, that was going on, and I don't want to know.
Sure.
Yep. But we're getting past that stage. There's too much money being spent, too much damage being done, and too many people are still profiteering from the fact that they're pleading ignorance. We need education for end users, for developers, for executives, and it's everybody's responsibility. The cyber is getting hotter and harder to do. It's not getting easier. The AI stuff, people are saying, oh yeah, AI will make you secure. Yes, it'll make you secure just as fast as it will make the bad guys better at making you insecure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it ain't going away.
Right. And with that, kids, just always remember, if you play a brass instrument, blow. Don't suck. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.